Hello and welcome to the Gaggle where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, and we're still on the 1st of January, so these are among our first podcasts of the year. And as befits a podcast at the beginning of the year, we want to look forward to what might happen. Obviously, we're not in the prediction business because we leave it to others who make these categorical predictions, which invariably remain unfulfilled. So we're going to make tentative prognoses as to the immediate future, and obviously we're thinking about Ukraine. And as we've discussed many times before, we expect, at least in the first 6 months of the year, that the Trump administration will make a push for bringing this war to an end. We've seen the rough outlines of what might be the Trump plan, which would be freezing the conflict on the present line of contact. So, there's basically a ceasefire. Issue of NATO, okay, that's going to be put on the back burner, postpone discussion about that. And in the meantime, of course, as is the wont of the United States, as is the wont of NATO, they're going to be preparing for round two, which is to keep arming Ukraine, signing all sorts of bilateral agreements. That I think is in rough outlines is the plan.
And
Okay, go.
a corollary of that is Georgia, Moldova, Armenia. Okay, will continue unabated. Okay, well, it will all come to naught because, as George gave the broad outlines, I agree with him. But this is what the West wants. This is not what Russia wants. That's kind of a problem here. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, like,
I,
unlike many of our esteemed acquaintances, this is going to go into probably all of 2025
yeah, I think so too. I think so too because I
because
mean,
I mean it's hazardous to look at the next 12 months. So I'm going to cut it off there. Will the conflict be going on in 2026? I don't want to go there. Okay, we're looking at 12 months. Okay, so I hope I'm wrong, and I would be very happy to say I was wrong, because I think this war is senseless and never should have happened in the first place. But given everything that we know about NATO, not about Ukraine, stop thinking about that. They have no agency. Okay? No agency. It is a grift that many people are happy with, very happy with, and do not want to see the end of it. The Americans have no problem with that either. I mean, it'll be a Gordian knot for Trump to cut, but he's already made it clear through his surrogates they're going to keep funding it. That's the key. They're going to keep funding it. You can always have a ceasefire, maybe the Korean model, and you can talk out of your sleeve all you want. Okay, if the money's going to be paid and there's someone to pick it up in Kiev, it's going to go on.
yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and that's why I don't think that there's any real pressure on Trump to bring this to an end. I mean, if he let's say that he tries to get a deal along those lines. Let's say it actually, both Ukraine and Russia agree to this agreement. He will be attacked. Trump will be immediately attacked in Washington by all sides, including his own people, for selling out Ukraine. Hey, you're doing Putin's bidding. You're basically, you're letting, Ukraine remain under Russian occupation. There's no advantages for him. There's just nothing there for him. So I don't. That's why I actually don't think this is going to work out. And even if, again, if Russia and Ukraine will say, okay, well, let's bring this thing to an end, someone within the Trump administration, will say,
They're
okay,
weak.
well,
They're
yeah,
weak. They're
that's right.
weak.
Let's exactly. Hey, let's put in another demand, which will surely to be refused. Like, hey, well, we'll have a referendum. Okay, we'll have a referendum in Ukraine in within I don't know the next 2 years. And basically then that will just be a complete deal breaker or something like that. Oh, but we are going to station our missiles, our intermediate range missiles on Ukrainian territory. They'll put in something that would absolutely guarantee the destruction of this agreement. So I don't think anything very much will come of that. And then I think Trump will be tempted to escalate, and I think that is quite likely that there'll be some kind of escalation particularly of American involvement.
One wrinkle in this scenario, and it's very unlikely, but there is a potential for it if there was a internal forced regime change in Kiev. That would be a variable that you would have a Ukrainian leader say to the Americans, "We're exhausted. We don't want to lose any more of our country. We're facing a demographic crisis." That's extremely unlikely
Yeah,
because Zelensky, being kind of the mafia boss that he is, how do mafia bosses work? You have your made men, and you make
yeah,
sure your made men are paid, and then they have their captains, and they're paid, and you go down. That's how it works, okay? And as long as he can, that's the only reason why he's still there, because he's a rainmaker for these
right,
people, okay? The grift will keep coming in. How much he keeps for himself is unknown, but I'm sure it's generous
right,
to himself,
right.
and he can make sure that he can make sure the power pyramid remains intact. And if there's going to be no audit, oh my God, I mean, who knows? 2025 could be the payday year. Okay.
Right.
That's how some of these people look at it. Okay. If their kids aren't fighting in the war, they're fighting, they're at Oxford and they're at Yale and all of that, and who knows if you're in Kiev all of the time.
Right.
So, I, my problem with so many other people talking about this, their heart is in the right. They want it to come to an end. I want it to come to an end. But wanting something is projecting and is interfering with your analysis. I'm
That's
sorry.
yeah,
Okay?
that's right.
Do you think decision makers in Washington are saying, this is a tragedy, and this is a moral crime? Well, I don't think anybody thinks that
No,
way.
no, not
They
true.
don't think in those terms,
No,
okay?
no. That's the remarkable thing that if there's an absolute consensus among Washington policymakers, Washington congressmen, and the think tank denizens, the people who write the op-eds, is well, this isn't a tragedy. This is actually pretty good. I mean, we're weakening Russia. We're doing everything in order
Where's the
to.
downside for us?
Yeah, exactly.
What is
Where's
what's
the
the
downside?
downside?
Oh, it's costing us a bit of money, but so what? We've got money to spare. I mean, Americans can always find money from somewhere. It's like the other day, Biden administration announced another a bunch of I can't remember the exact sum for Ukraine. I mean, it's amazing how you can just find this money
Which
from anywhere where if it's something like anything else, like hey, how about some hurricane relief for North Carolina?
exactly, George. And see, if there is a vulnerability, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
That's exactly what the policymakers, the elected politicians, is that they don't want to hear that. What about the people in the last hurricane? I saw pictures of it. If it's true on I saw on Twitter. I mean, it's a moonscape. It still is months later. Okay,
right.
but as long as you can, if you have the ability to ignore those people,
Yep.
marginalize people to talk about it, and that's basically going to be in the alternative media. I mean, do you think anybody in the mainstream media is going to
Right.
question that? No. I mean, as long as they can manage the message, manage the narrative,
Right.
then what's the downside? There's no downside. See, that's what I keep trying to explain to people. And George, to his credit, has been at the forefront of this for the duration of this conflict.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Now, the Trump people are quite clever at pretending to be skeptical. So, well, I don't know about this one. Yeah, I don't know. This is, another 5 billion for Ukraine. Well, I don't know. I got to think about it. And then they're going to give it. I mean, it's like it's a piece of theater whereby they keep the base happy by appearing to be skeptical. Well, I don't know about how well this money is going to be used, and well, I don't know, but all right, have the
Yeah,
five
I
billion.
mean,
And Trump did this during his first term, but I mean, he got impeached for it. But he said, I don't know, maybe it's not such a great idea to send this 500 million for Ukraine in weaponry. And then, of course, he said, yeah, fine, send it. I mean, it's theater in order to keep some of his Republican base on board.
okay, to finish on this one, because we got to talk about a few others here. Um, American credibility is on the line. See, that's always going to sell, George. It's
It's always,
always,
again,
always sells.
that's always been the
All right,
the
all right, let's
selling
just
point.
change gears a little bit. Trump's first year in office, um, um, president number 47, Pontus 47. What's his first year like?
Um, I think when it comes to his domestic agenda, I think will be quite an interesting one. I think if he pursues, some reckoning with the people within the Justice Department and within the FBI, I think that would be quite interesting. I mean, I think that there, that would, I think, be a significant um, political move. That, in other words, that the so-called deep state or whatever cannot go in and meddle in domestic affairs in the way it has really, for the past 10 years. So I think that would be significant. But so I think that domestically, I think it would be quite interesting, and see, what he's able to.
Well, what about
And and then,
what's going on in MAGA?
well, I think that's going to be quite, to keep MAGA on board. He's going to have to do something about the legal warfare that had been waged against Trump. I think they're waiting for that. They're waiting that there's going to be some kind of a reckoning for all of those characters, whether it's Comey, McCabe, and the rest of them, and what they did. So that will be important. Then, of course, there's going to be the immigration issue, and I mean, I think he will get money for continuing to build the wall. I think he's going to go ahead with some of the deportations, but then it becomes interesting. Is going to be challenged in the courts, and that I don't know how successful he will be in the courts. I think he'll probably have more success now than he got back in it's 8 years ago, because he does have a mandate. I mean, he did win the election, but that's going to be interesting, really, how the courts are going to try to resist his administration.
Yeah, I'm very this we've talked about it a day or so ago, Elmi. This Vivek and Elon.
Well, yeah, exactly. I was going. Okay, go on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, that's why I asked the question about
Oh,
Trump.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's going to be very interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And that's what I think is really very interesting, because this happened way before. And I mean, I thought this would have happened in the first 6 months. I mean, it's happened, what, 4 weeks or 3 weeks before. So
Right.
that really took me by surprise, to be honest with you. Okay. And how vocal members of the different factions are. I mean, it was almost if, the swords came out really. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought we were all, binging still about
Right.
the victory in November. Oh, well, they're not.
Right.
Okay. And this tells me something, is that for a lot of Trump supporters, and I'm not going to give credence, I'm just going to kind of describe it, that this election was existential when it comes to like censorship, woke culture, this elite preening and all of this. I mean, I thought a lot of people, the gauntlet was thrown down, and I can see that in the way a lot of people reacted during the campaign, and the absolutely flawless last months, 6 weeks of Trump's I mean, that was just flawless, in my opinion. Okay. But it was very visceral for a lot of people. What I'm getting at is that this is a reckoning. We won an overwhelming victory. We gave it to you. Now we really, no more promises. We want something in return. And I think that is really at the forefront. Putting your trust into Vivek and Elon is a fool's errand.
It
It's
is. Yeah.
foolish.
Yeah. No, that's right. But what's I think interesting and why I think this issue is kind of fraught is Musk contributed a lot of money into Trump's campaign. I think it's $250 million. And that was very, very important in the get out the vote effort. I mean, that was the key, which they kind of weren't able to do in 2020. But and Musk knew this is your key ingredient in any possible victory. You've got to get the low propensity voters to the ballot box. I mean, you have to do it, and that's where that 250 million. And that's why Musk now is in this position. He said, "Hey, I was the one who kind of got you over the finish line. Now I want something in return." And this is why this is really bubbled up, because Musk is making clear that he did it. He got delivered this victory, and now he's there at the table demanding things.
I mean, for me, at the last few days when Trump was in that garbage truck,
Right.
I just thought that was just absolutely retail brilliance.
Right.
But when I saw that, I thought Elon, he snapped a few fingers. I want a
Right.
garbage truck. I want all the decals and painted up, and I want it done in 15 minutes.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, that's it. And that's why
You think a political operator could do that fast? No.
right.
You
But
think RNC could do it that fast? No. Somebody with money and muscle and determination just said, I want this turned around in a day. Okay.
But that's it. That's the incredible thing, which is that Musk has an awful lot of money. He didn't have any problems getting $250 million. Trump doesn't have that kind of money.
That's what Elon has in his billfold.
Right, exactly. But if you remember Trump when he was in that in New York State, that ridiculous case that was brought by Letitia James, and of course she won her case, and then he was hit with this ridiculous fine. But in order to appeal, he needed to put up bond for to go ahead with the appeal. He needed $500 million to do it, and he said, "I don't have that kind of cash to hand," and so they had to reduce it. But he said, "I don't have that cash to hand," and that Musk, he just boom, he can write a check like that. That's the huge difference between the kind of money that Musk commands and the kind of money that Trump commands. And I think Trump is probably quite impressed with that. Hey, well, I'm someone on my side who doesn't have any problems at all, raising any amount of money that he wants.
How would you feel if you are yourself a billionaire and you're sitting across the table from a guy that is projected to become the first trillionaire?
Yeah.
Look at Tesla stock, everyone. Look at it. 12 months, anemic. It was down the whole year. After the assassination attempt, Elon gets on board. Elon finished very well this year. Why?
Right. Yeah.
Because they know, well, for God's sake, to this day, he's still living in Mar-a-Lago. I just found that out today. Can you believe it?
That's right.
They're roommates.
That's right, and that's right. I think he rented out a cottage at Mar-a-Lago. I think was it $2,000 a night or something like that. That's a pretty packet. I mean, if you're going to stay there for a week, that adds up very quickly. A week, a month, 2 months. That's a big chunk of change. But apparently not for Musk. But to go back to your point, I mean, for MAGA. They really, that H-1B thing really exploded, because that's the thing, Musk brought up that issue of H-1B. The H-1B scam it's an ongoing thing, and it's been an ongoing thing for Musk and for MAGA, for Steve Bannon, for all of them for years and years and years. I mean, it came up in 2016. and they said this is an absolute scam. It's basically you're bringing in people, you're bringing in cheap labor, mostly cheap labor from India. You're using them to replace American workers. American workers have to train them. They have to train them in order to take their jobs. By definition, they can't be such special talents if they have to be trained by the people who are already working there. So this was an absolute, throwdown by Musk, but to saying, "Oh, I'm going to absolutely, stand my ground on H-1B," and then all hell broke loose.
Well,
With
I mean, it's
Bannon
interesting,
and the rest.
but see, this is an issue and it's been an ongoing issue. George is right. But it goes back to what I'm saying. The gauntlet has been thrown. This just happened to be
Right,
the issue at the moment.
right.
And we saw how Elon backtracked. I mean, it's kind
Yes,
of
you
okay.
have to backtrack.
Particularly, a lot of people when they tweet, they hope their friends will see it. I mean,
Right,
when Elon tweets, the whole world sees
right,
it. Okay. And
right.
he did backtrack. All
You
right.
backtrack.
And Vivek, he may have the all-time most buffoonish tweet in history. Okay. And that's going to haunt him for the rest of his political career, whatever that career is,
Yeah,
which I don't think there is going to be one. I just don't. I think that he has put off so many people.
yeah,
Okay, Vivek, you were the Trump stand-in.
right,
Good for you.
right.
Don't you feel proud, okay, that you walked around like you were the avatar for Donald Trump for a few months? Good for you, okay? But when the real thing reemerged, you are of no value anymore at all because you are the snotty, I'm the smartest boy in the class guy, which nobody likes.
Nobody likes. No, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think his political career is over because if he would to plan, and he may still plan to run in 2028. That's going to be brought up. It's going to be brought up against him. I mean, that's they're going to be. His opponents are going to be with delight quoting him. It was a very, very long tweet, so they're going to quote this sentence, that sentence, that one. So there's just
That's going
no
to
way he's going
be
to get himself out of that.
it's going to be a GOP dissertation, George. There's going to be, I mean, you can probably start to, Vivek buffoon studies at Yale now. Okay, I mean, you can chew on that. You can make a career chewing off on that.
Right.
A whole career, believe me.
Right. Yeah. 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 No, that's right. But then it becomes an interesting issue as to what does Trump do about Musk. The good thing for Trump is that at this stage, he's thinking to himself, okay, I'm a one-term president. So I don't have to worry about re-election. Therefore, I don't have to worry in the way that during his first term he was worried about re-election. He had to suck up to Sheldon Adelson, the whole Zionist billionaires. He doesn't have to worry about re-election, but you never know what might happen after in the post-presidency. He might need money. I mean, you never know. I mean, who knows what's going to happen over the next 4 years? But he may need money after he leaves office. So I don't think he can afford to antagonize. So everything that he's doing now, he's going out of his way to keep Musk really happy. So
You can't do it forever.
you can't. But for instance, I mean, somehow it was exposed the direct message on Twitter, and he seemed to be begging Musk to show up for the New Year's Eve party at Mar-a-Lago, as if somehow he was upset that Musk hadn't replied to the New Year's Eve invitation. So he was going, oh, it's going to be a fantastic party. You must come, and Musk was there. Again, in that peculiar way of bringing in his little boy, carrying him on his shoulder. Again, this is the eccentric billionaire. And then when he was interviewed yesterday, Trump, when he was going into the party, he doubled down on the H-1B thing. Just said, yeah, I've always been for it. I'm really for it, and we need lots and lots of people coming into the country. This kind of thing is not going to go down well hey, he said we need lots and lots of people coming into our country, and they said, hey, whoa, you didn't talk like this during the campaign. This kind of talk is not going to go down well with his supporters.
No, because this was the deal. Again, I think for a lot of people, the people that were, voter hesitant and all that, as you mentioned here, and the pitch was made. If we don't change course
Right.
now, it's done. We're done. Okay. Now you can make the argument of whatever you want. What I'm just saying. I think it was presented, and I think it was accepted that way. So wobbling on this kind of immigration, it's not a winning.
No,
It's not a winning ticket. You
no,
can't do that.
no.
You can't wobble your way through this because people are expecting. I think I'll use my word. I'm not saying this is the incoming Trump's administration's word, but they're going to want some scalps.
Right,
Number one.
right,
Okay.
right,
Number one. Okay. Immigration was key to this election. Okay. This kind of wobbly talk about immigration, that's
right,
not acceptable. Okay. And then we have Johnson is given the nod to stay on as
right,
speaker.
right.
Mm,
That's right. Yeah,
a bad taste in some people's mouths.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, that's right. And it is immigration was an issue. It wasn't just illegal immigration. It was never just, oh well, I just said I was against illegal immigration. No, it was immigration. I mean, the whole idea of replacing the Native American population by foreigners. That was the issue. It wasn't just, oh well, I only want people who but I'm all for people coming in and taking Americans' jobs. No, 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 that was not that's not part of the deal. So that is going to create a real series of problems for him, because essentially that was really Trump's selling point. Trump's selling point really from the moment that he emerged in 2015 was the issue of immigration. If it was all limited to illegal immigration, that wouldn't have been particularly noticeable, because of course all Republicans will say, yeah, well, I'm against illegal immigration. Absolutely. We can't have people breaking the law. That's an easy one. It was precisely that, hey, we've got to keep buy American, hire American. That's the slogan. Buy American, hire American. You're going to say we're going to hire Indians, then that definitely is not MAGA. That's not America
And
first.
and the conservative echo chamber is in overdrive right now. You mentioned Steve Bannon. A lot of other people are coming out of the woodwork right
Right,
now
right,
because a promise made. What's the end of the phrase?
right,
Promise kept.
right,
Okay, and I think this visa issue is just an indication of what's to come.
right,
Okay,
right.
because um, his electorate, or a good part of his electorate, is not in a compromising mood.
No,
They're
no.
particularly, this is one of the legacies of the last year, which makes me very, very happy. It was made me happy enough to wake up this morning, is that the libs are in disarray. This is the time to take charge
Right,
because they're gonna have 18 months to start reorganizing themselves with the same
right,
BS. Okay, it's not going to change. Okay,
right,
this is the time to take the reins and ride hard.
right,
Okay, this wobbly stuff is not going to go down well, and that's why this is supposed to be about predictions. Trump is going to be around 40% because at the end of the year in the polls. That's where I look at it because where you begin tells you a lot about where you're going to end. Okay. And this is, the Trump administration is not going to fall on this visa issue. It's going to be a lot of other things, but it gives us some insight into, the
right,
rhetoric was one thing a few
right.
weeks ago, but the policy may be different. Okay. I'm going to change gears right now. The Middle East, Trump on day one will be a war president. Okay, and he has no choice.
Right.
He is a war president, and he's inheriting a mess. Can you think of another president that has inherited this kind of volatility and turmoil?
Well, the only thing is because Nixon coming in 1969
Yeah,
with
but that was baked in. Okay,
that
that
was
way.
that was baked in, but in terms of you're coming in a very unenviable situation. I can't. I mean, I think maybe but yeah, I mean, Ronald Reagan coming in 1981. I mean, you've got the situation with Iran and Afghanistan, deteriorating relationship with the Soviet Union, but nothing as as bad as this. But I mean, I mean, Vietnam was in January 1969 was seemed like an absolutely intractable problem. I mean, how the hell do you somehow succeed either in winning this war or extricating yourself from it? Because it was obvious to Nixon and everyone around Nixon that hey, it's going to become Nixon's war within a matter of days. You're the one who's going to be carrying it. You're going to be blamed for anything that goes wrong in Vietnam. So it was a very difficult moment to
Yeah,
take
but
it. So I mean, in some
Nixon,
ways, that already Trump is carrying that burden. In no time at all, it's your Ukraine is your war, and the war in Palestine is your war.
yeah, but Nixon was a supreme political operator. He had a plan. He knew where he wanted to go, and he achieved it. I don't see that.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But look, we know that Nixon, all the way up to sometime the middle of 1972, thought he was going to have a very tough re-election on his hands. He thought he would either be up against Kennedy or he would be up against Muskie, maybe up against Humphrey again. So he thought this is going to be a very tough re-election. He didn't really expect the Democrats to implode the way they did and select George McGovern. It turned out to be a very easy win. But if you go back to that time, it was by no means a done deal that Nixon would prevail.
It looks like the war in the conflict in the Middle East is expanding. We have greater involvement now of the U.S. and in the UK and Yemen. I think that
Right.
front is very much alive and will expand here. With the collapse of the Syrian state, I mean, I don't know. I would actually dare someone to make predictions about that because there's
Right.
so many
Right. No, I
um,
think that's
so many moving pieces there. I mean, it's number one, it's hard to comprehend what is actually happening at the
right.
moment, let alone talk about what's going to happen months and a year from now. That's it.
I think one prediction
I'm
that
bewildered by it. It's a
one prediction that I would make there is that I think the United States will increase its involvement. So far from Trump back in 2017 thought that there was really no point to it. I mean, he kind of assumed, well, basically, Assad has prevailed. Russia has, succeeded in preventing his downfall. What's the point of keeping Americans there? He's not going to take that view now. He's going to say, hey, Israel's in, Turkey's in. Who knows what the Russian plan here is? We need to increase our presence in Syria, and I think that it's already happening, and I think it's going to happen at an even faster pace under Trump.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Nothing good in the
No,
next.
nothing good. But the other aspect is, well, what about Netanyahu? Netanyahu take Trump's victory as a signal for achieving some of his long-term goals. I mean, one obvious long-term goal is the partial annexation of the West Bank. Again, in his first term, Trump had said no to Netanyahu. He's going to say no again to Netanyahu.
I doubt it.
Mm,
As a matter
I
of fact,
doubt too.
I think Netanyahu, because he's looking at his legacy um, in a big way. I mean, he had surgery, I guess, in the last day or so. I mean, he's at the twilight, and he wants to come out as the most successful Israeli prime minister since the establishment of Israel, and he's well on his way of doing that just by in terms of real estate. And I feel that the annexation of all of the West Bank is a done deal in his mind, and it's just going to be played out. And
The problem
there's
with
nothing.
annexation of the old, because then you have
Well,
bringing the
the thing
Palestinians
is,
into your state, which is that's not a good deal for him.
well, I mean,
He only wants the settlements. He doesn't really want the Palestinians.
I think that the mindset of of himself and his people around him is that this opportunity I say in air quotes, is not going to come around again.
No, I think so. But that's why I think
Move them,
he only
move
wants
them
the
all.
settlements. He wants the
Move them.
settlements. He doesn't
No,
want the
move them
question.
all. Move them all of them.
Right, but what's he going to do
Push
with the
them into
Palestinians?
Jordan. Push them into Jordan.
Okay, well that's going to
Well,
be
look,
a tough sell. All
I
right, but
was, my predictions about Gaza are coming more true than most people. Is that the genocide will continue? Okay, you know, it's so hard to comprehend that. I mean, the destruction of an entire people, but it's happening as we speak. I mean, it continues. It continues, and the numbers coming out of Gaza now are meaningless. Those numbers are now are almost a year old, George, because there is no one counting anymore.
mm,
It's they just don't have the capacity to count. Okay, so however, we can look up in the dictionary the word genocide. We can look at legal documents what did genocide mean, but essentially, the Israel will not let this quote unquote opportunity pass. I think there's
right, but
far more
I mean, I
violence.
think they are using the opportunity. But I think annexing the settlements is what they want. I mean, that's kind of what they want. They
Oh
don't. I
yeah,
mean,
then you
you
take
just take
then.
the rest of it. I mean, it's just that's just causing you an awful lot of headaches. I mean, they might do it, but I think it's unlikely. I mean, my feeling is that he's just going to go for the settlements, add that, and then just dump the Palestinians
Well,
to the
with George,
to the rest of the West Bank.
the settlements, and then its environs, then its environs, and it will be an okay, interesting caveat. Good point. I think it will be a ongoing annexation. Okay, ongoing, and I think it's going to be more population transfers, more ethnic cleansing. It's interesting. The Western punditry. Israel made peace with Jordan, made peace with Egypt. Given the opportunity, quote unquote, again, that the Israelis have, they don't care about Jordan whatsoever. Okay. As a matter of fact, if you talk to a lot of Zionists will, from the get-go, say the Palestinians already have a state. It's Jordan. Okay.
Right.
That's what
That's the position that they've definitely taken. But nonetheless, I mean, Jordan doesn't absolutely doesn't have the capacity
it doesn't.
to take in the Palestinians. Egypt is not going to cooperate on this. Absolutely, Egypt isn't going to cooperate with this, and that'll be a problem because I think the Americans do listen to Egypt, and I don't think they're going to tell Sisi. I mean, I think they've already tried that. I mean, the Biden administration already tried to get Egypt to cooperate on taking the Palestinians, and he said no. So I think that's gonna be a hard sell to get them into Sinai.
My gut tells me the cyanide is still there on the
Oh,
table.
I think look. I think that Trump would probably try to do something like that. He probably will try to apply pressure against Sisi, but I think there's a limit to what you can do. I don't know. I mean, my feeling is that it's going to be just too hard to sell to get the Egyptians to agree. And I agree the Jordanians might take some. They're not going to take all of them. They simply can't. They don't have the resources, the capability of taking
Well,
all the
George,
Palestinians.
we saw in the year that just passed the collapse of Syria as a sovereign state. I mean, in December of 2023, you and I, if someone would have said that to us, we would have
No, no,
laughed.
that's right. They
And so I don't think there's anything um, particularly special about the sovereign state of Jordan in the
there's nothing special, but Jordan nonetheless has been in the American column all these years. Syria is a different case. Syria was always been
Yeah,
the
but I mean, just yes, Jordan, you did all the right things, but
yeah,
sorry,
maybe
they
again,
just
I would I don't think so. I mean, we can argue forever, but I have my doubts that the
but
Americans,
Jordan, I mean,
Jordan's a long-standing, American ally. For them to just destroy Jordan in this way would be quite a big step for the United States.
okay.
Much more so. Syria, there was no real change in the Syrian policy, but this would be a major change in U.S. foreign policy for them essentially to destroy the state of Jordan.
Would you agree with the following? Netanyahu, the Likud party, the people that are running Israel right now, they see this as again, air quotes, opportunity that they're not going to let go. And I think that
Yeah,
if we could just delineate
right.
that.
That
Okay.
I agree with, and but that's why I think it's going to be a more limited annexation. I don't disagree with annexation. I think it's going to be limited. I think they're going to take the settlements, just like I think that in terms of what are they going to do in Gaza, I think there's going to be a limited annexation of Gaza. I don't think they're going to take the whole thing. And you could say maybe down the road they will, but for the time being, I think they're going to limit themselves to maybe northern Gaza, and they're going to limit themselves to the settlements of the West Bank. I think to take the whole thing of the West Bank, that's a real that's a huge headache for everyone, and I certainly don't think the Americans are going to go along with it.
Okay. Switching gears. Greenland and Panama. And I guess you could throw in Canada there. Maybe that was just done in jest, but and anyway. I think it's very interesting that these two issues, Panama and Greenland, popped up the way they did, because I see, and I think I've said this to you before, I see this as Fortress America. I see this. I think this is the direction of geopolitics. Because the rules-based order have been completely disabused, and no one will actually say it with a straight face.
Right.
We've seen how the nation state, the sovereignty of nation states, are being trashed left and right and center. That's not really on the front burner anymore. I think Trump wants to think very big. I think it will compensate for other problems,
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine, at least.
Right.
Um, and there's going to be a lot of people in his base that like that kind of big talk. Really.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I agree with you.
I just, a lot of people passed it off as just kind of,
No,
um, as an outlier. I actually think this is a very serious thing.
I think so too. I actually think so too. I think that they will that they are going to end up taking back the Panama Canal, and they're going to say, "Well, what are you going to do about it? What's Panama going to? What's the OAS going to do about it? The OAS is completely run by the Americans. Who's going to stop you?" And as you say, I think it'll be quite popular in Washington. They'll say basically, that the Panama hasn't done a particularly good job. They can say, that they've been charging exorbitant fees. They haven't cooperated on a lot of issues with the Americans on the issue of immigration. They haven't cooperated on drug trafficking. You know, why should Panama have it? We did them a favor, back now 50 years ago. They haven't really fulfilled their part of the bargain. Yeah, let's take it. Who's going to stop the Americans? And I think the same thing with Greenland. I think they're going to apply real pressure against Denmark. I mean, basically, we're going to make them an offer they can't refuse. I think Panama and Greenland. I think Trump will accomplish that. The thing that will Trump accomplish, essentially dissolving the state of Canada, so that Canada becomes a part of the United States. I mean, which is also a Trump's agenda. Is that going to happen?
I seriously doubt it. Okay. Though it's not the best in the world, but they do have free healthcare. Okay. And that, there are a lot of people that would like the United States to become more like Canada and not
Yeah, I
Canada.
know, but that's not going to happen. It's kind of just too
Well,
small.
I mean, it's again, you know, it's a theme that you and I have talked about for years. The people ignore geopolitics, okay, because they're obsessed with ideology. Okay, well, geopolitics is front and center right now, and Canada's a huge country with a tiny population. Um, um, the cultural intercourse between the United States and Canada, I mean, you can't get much closer. I mean, I don't say a at the end of every sentence, but I understand everything Canadians have to say,
Right,
and that they understand us. From a geopolitical point of view, I think it does make sense.
right,
Okay.
right.
Um, Neither country sees the other as hostile. I mean, okay,
Right.
we hate Trudeau, but he's not Canada.
Right,
Okay.
right. No, I think so. And I I kind of feel that many Canadians don't really think that their country has been particularly well run for a number of years, and particularly on the years with under Trudeau. And there's the other aspect of it, which is Trump's America may be quite an attractive incentive for Canadians, particularly on the issue of immigration, because again, Canada has had a very lax policy on immigration. I mean, so you look at the Canadian Parliament, some debate in Canadian Parliament, not very interesting, but the one thing that's striking, look at so many people with wearing turbans.
Visuals. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whoa, look at this. This is, you always thought of Canada as, look very kind of a very white
No, it
place.
looked like Montana.
Yeah, that's how you imagine Canada. And then here are all these people with these the turbans, the Sikh turbans. So I think, if Trump really, comes down very hard on the immigration issue, I think it'll be quite popular in Canada. I mean, they're going to have a referendum. I think that referendum is going to be very, very close on the issue of, hey, do you want to join the United States? Canadians will say, what's wrong? Why not? I don't think Canadian national identity is a particularly strong one. So
Well,
I think it could well happen.
I may be struck down for saying this, okay, and I mean no disrespect, okay, but uh, Canadian national identity is based on not being American in North
That's
America.
that. Yeah, the
I
more
mean, is that flowing through your veins?
right, right. Yeah, that no, I think so. And I think, once they went down this path, I think, of accommodating the French Canadians, and that was started by Trudeau's father, accommodating, because up until then he was pretty much run by the English Canadians, but they started accommodating, everything became bilingual and everything, so the whole French thing was really pushed front and center. I think the Canadian national identity became much weaker as a result. It just lost what was distinctive about Canada. I don't think it has a strong national identity. It's hard to think of
Well,
anything that's specifically like this is Canadian, the Canadian way of doing things.
we really need to bring on a Canada expert and
Yep.
have a chat about this because I feel a little bit out of my depth. I shouldn't. It's the northern neighbor, for
Right.
goodness sake. I mean, it's one of those. It's really truly extraordinary how little Americans know about Canada.
Right, because why should they? I mean, it's like, I mean, there's nothing to particularly know. I mean, they can always be relied upon to do America's bidding. In all these organizations, they generally follow the Americans' lead. When they start quarreling about something like tariffs, in the way Trudeau started quarreling with Trump about tariffs, and Trump tells him, "Hey, you got to get with the program. This is, that, we're the United States. This, you're part of our economic network. So, you know, people only know about something if there's you have a serious issue with them, and then hey, I better find out something about it. And in the way that people knew quite a lot original, at least there was a lot of studying done about the Soviet Union. There was big Soviet studies, but people felt that they needed to know something about it. But there haven't been, like in Russia, not really that much interest because they know Americans haven't really taken Russia very seriously. So, I think that's why Americans don't take, they haven't taken Canada very seriously. They've always assumed Canada is more or less an extension of the United States.
Well, and why do I use the word geopolitics so often? Because Canada is a major Arctic country.
Right.
And this is something
Yeah.
that geopolitical thinkers and policymakers in Washington are thinking about it. The polar ice cap is melting. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Has it ever happened before? I don't know. Okay. I mean, I argue with this all the Peter, the polar ice cap is melting. I said, when's the last time it melted? I don't know. Has it ever melted? I don't know. Well,
Right.
maybe it has many, 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 many times. Okay. Just that our modern civilization hasn't recorded it yet. Okay. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. But geopolitics is front and center because do you want to have Canada manning what 30, 40% of the Arctic? Is that your reliable ally? How many icebreakers can they make? Is their
Right.
economy strong enough to do it? Is it big enough to do it? There's going to be plenty of people in Washington saying, "No, that's our front line. Canada's in the way."
Right,
Okay.
but I think also in terms of that you're right on the Arctic. That's where you want to put all your your strategic, your missiles, your early warning systems, your all of your uh, electronic intelligence, and every kind of
Watch Russia
military
and China.
hardware. That's kind of where you want to put it, because hey, if there's a war, that's the way your missiles are going to go over the Arctic. So it's strategically, it's obviously very, very important for the United States. And really, you think about it, Canada's kind of in the way. I mean, it's if you're going down this path of thinking for the next, whatever 20, 25 years of your strategic needs, then Ottawa is kind of in the way of things, and I think that's why Trump is going to begin this push for incorporating Canada in the United States. It may not happen in the next 4 years, but I think he's going to put this on the agenda.
If this does move forward, and I think it will, I'll be very interesting to see those in Canada that are for it. I'd be really interesting to hear their arguments for it. All right, it's in the lifetime of George and I, people there has been thought about that of one day adding it. Okay, it's just taken it's more immediate right now, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by Greenland and Canada. They have what in common?
Yeah.
Northern frontier. That's what they have
Right.
in common.
That's exactly right. And that it's all about strengthening the United States strategically. And that's how Trump thinks. And he doesn't think in sort of the way others. He does think in strategically. And I think even if you ask Canadians now, if you had a poll now, I think I'm not saying 50% would go along with it, but quite a substantial proportion of the Canadian population
I
would
mean,
actually think it's pretty good. And I think Americans, American public opinion would be quite happy because they actually quite like Canadians, and they think if we get the Canadians in, we're getting more people like us into our country as opposed to the immigrants who you're bringing in, the people who are not like us, including the H-1B visas, which are largely enjoyed by Indians and Chinese. So now you're bringing in, white Americans, essentially.
how would it work? I mean, Canada is one state because Canada an entire country, its population is smaller than some American states.
Right.
So I mean, would you have, so you have Delaware,
Right. Right.
two senators from Canada. I don't know how that would work. Okay, I mean, are we just going to expand the number of stars on the flag? I mean,
Well, you'd have to. I mean, you'd have to. I mean, there's nothing magical about the number 50. I mean, it only came about with, I think, Hawaii, I think, was the last state that was joined the union. So you'd have to bring in additional states, which is, again, Trump would like it because there was a lot of talk about, well, let's make Puerto Rico a state. Well, Americans didn't want that.
I'll take British Columbia.
Yeah, we don't want Puerto Rico, but if you're saying, hey, exactly, British Columbia, hey,
I'll
what
take
about this?
Newfoundland. Newfoundland.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, this is pretty nice. That's a nice piece of real estate. And again, hey, Canadians, they're people just like us. So yeah, let's take it. So I think public opinion would support it in the United States, and we'll see what Canadians think. I mean, they've had such mediocre leaders in recent years. I mean, if you just so I think it's a serious issue, and it's just, it's not at all ridiculous. And I think it's going to Trump is going to set this in motion, and may not happen on his watch, could happen on his successor's watch.
Always remember, borders change all the time.
Of course they do.
They change all of the
Right.
time. And it's something that, some people, they clutch their pearls, but it's the way things go. I mean,
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
countries appear, disappear, remarkably, some reappear. Poland did, like, for example.
Yeah.
But there's nothing constant about borders, everyone.
No,
They
no.
change all of the time. How
Yeah.
they change? No, that's another question, but they change all the time.
Right. Right. No, I mean, obviously, if this happens, it will have to be done in a peaceful,
Oh yeah. Okay.
it'll be
Yeah.
done by means of consent. Well, I mean, I don't think the United States is going to push, move its armed forces to the border. So I think it will be done peacefully. I mean, I think it will be done. There'll be referendums. There'll be,
Yeah.
negotiations.
I
All
mean,
of those issues about how many states will comprise Canada and everything.
yeah. I mean,
What are you going to
everybody.
do with the French Canadians and so on? I think these can easily be negotiated. I mean, I don't. They're not unsurpassable problems.
Look,
Yeah,
in American political parlance, when you say the border, 99% of the time you're thinking of the southern border, not the northern
right.
border, okay? That's not seen as a problem. And I don't know how stringent border controls are now, but I mean, it's pretty easy to go back and forth between Canada and the United States, okay?
Yeah.
Um, and there is elements of illegal immigration from Canada into the
Right.
United
Right.
States.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Because again, I don't know how the border, but yeah, it's really is an unarmed
Oh, it's
border. Now,
porous. I mean, go to Montana.
right,
You
yeah,
can accidentally walk into Canada.
right.
Okay.
I mean, physically, I mean, I think there are border controls on roads and railways, but the terrain isn't the easiest to cross, but it can be done. I mean, if you're determined to do it, you can cross the border, other than the roads and railways. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially an unarmed border. So, but it's a very nice piece of real estate. I mean, if you're an American, you think, hey, it's a beautiful country. Um, we've already talked about it strategically. It's absolutely essential for a global superpower like the United States. The Arctic is where it's at. So all the arguments are in favor of it. And so, America has been restrained in the past, really, but that nothing is forever.
And one thing that I mention it a lot, and I hope people will remember that I was the lone wolf in the forest howling about it. Canada has a lot of water. Okay, water will be, as time passes, one of the most coveted resources. Okay, because of the way the Earth is changing. Russia and Canada are the two future hydropowers. And the way, given the conversation George and I have had, the United States will be a hydropower possibly in the future. Okay. Don't underestimate that. That is so very important. Any Democratic Party?
Well, I think that's I think a lot depends there on how
Will they
Trump
have a
fares.
postmortem? Will they have a postmortem?
Yeah, I think they'll have a post-mortem. And I think obviously they're going to dump on Biden. I think they're obviously going to dump on Harris. The question is, will they try to emulate Trumpism, Trump American firstism? And I think they probably will. I think they will find some way of embracing that in much the way that after the failures of the Democrats against Reagan, they kind of had to reinvent themselves and embrace some form of Reaganism, kind of Reagan's hostility to big government. After all the enthusiasm for big government in the 60s, so in the 80s, suddenly the government was the problem. And that led to Bill Clinton. Oh, the era of big government is over. So I think that was now the question. Then is, will the Democrats embrace some kind of populist economics? I suspect they will. I think they will
Well,
basically.
they have
They'll go
to.
down exactly. They'll go down against supporting tariffs. I think they will have to. They will have to, in some ways, embrace immigration control. I mean, that's anathema to the modern Democratic Party, but they're going to have to do that because they know they're getting killed on the subject of immigration.
Well, the word is that not within the next year, but within the next few months, they're going to come completely clean on the senility of Joe Biden and maybe blame their ill fortunes on Joe Biden, which will be a fool's errand. But that's part of the post mortem. Okay.
Right,
There
but
were
I think it's
people
going to be
that,
more than that. They have to also account for, because if you're just going to limit it to personalities, always Biden
no,
or
I'm saying that's
Harris,
the
yeah,
first step. I'm
yeah,
saying that's the
yeah.
first.
Because that's an easy one. You can always just dump on your candidate, but you have to then say, well, we did something wrong. We didn't address people's concern, and obviously that issue of immigration. They know they knew they when it was too late. They knew they're getting killed on this issue, and then they're going to have to do with this the tariffs. They're attacking Trump now, but they're going to say the tariffs is the way to go. Now the question then is, who will pick up the mantle? I mean, so far no one has emerged, but there's still a number of years, and some Democrat could emerge, embracing that sort of populist economics for the party.
George hits on something that's very important here. There's no obvious choice, is there? They have no obvious
No,
choice.
not at the moment. No, no.
Look at the GOP bench.
Right.
It's crowded already. It's
Right.
crowded already.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's very true.
You know,
Um,
this
yeah.
mistake, I was going to say tactically, but it's probably strategic, is their rigged primaries against Bernie Sanders, because the Bernie Bros, they voted for Trump. They were pushed away. They were insulted. Okay, and then they repurposed themselves because they were left populists. Well, left populism and right populism has a lot of commonalities.
Right.
The most important one is people are angry.
Right.
Okay, and they got the Trump got that that was injected into his because he was angry and he reflected the anger of the population. That's why they voted for him in an
Right.
unprecedented way. So Democrats, stop rigging your primaries. Okay, maybe that might help a little
All right.
bit.
No, I think so.
You can hate Donald Trump all you want, and there are many reasons to, but they had an open primary.
That's very true. That's very true. And the Democrats have been doing this really for years and years and years. I mean, ever since George McGovern, they
Yep.
nominated McGovern and he led them to a disaster. They've been rigging that system, to
Right.
get the ideal candidate. And it's right. They were terrified of Jesse Jackson. It was back in the 80s. They were absolutely terrified. What are we going to do about Jesse Jackson? The party's going to vote for Jesse Jackson. But as a result, they kind of got behind really very weak candidates like Michael Dukakis. Um, well, at the moment, it's very early days. I mean, we'll have to see really within the Democrat, but I can't see the people who are now the supposed front runners. I don't see them embracing a kind of a sort
Yeah.
of leftish Trumpism. I don't see.
I think
Uh,
they need
you know,
it. They need a clean slate.
they need
All of it.
they need somebody new. Yeah, absolutely need.
And a corollary to that is the complete rejection of the mainstream media. The
Right,
mainstream is, did the mainstream media pull down the Democrats or the Democrats pull down the mainstream media?
right,
Discuss among yourselves. It really doesn't matter,
right,
okay?
right,
Because the fate is the same.
right.
NBC, MSNBC looks like it's going to be sold off. I mean,
Right. Yeah,
I
no,
mean, it's one of these things. It's like at a firing range when you have like these silhouettes of
yeah,
characters. You shoot them, boom, boom, boom. This is what Trump took out all of his
right,
he took out all of his adversaries
right.
in 2016. Then he took out the Clintons. Then he took out the Bushes. Then
That's
he
right.
took out the Cheneys. Then he
That's
took
right.
out the entire Democratic
Right,
Party.
right.
And
That's
I'm
right.
not saying that this was premeditated and this was part of a plan because I don't think it was. Okay, but it's because all of his opponents underestimated him, despised the American people, and are ideologically possessed. That's why it was so easy for Trump to boom, boom, boom every single one of them. It was their inherent weaknesses, not his inherent strength.
No, I think so, and I think that the Democrats, other than rigging the primaries, I mean, they also went down this disastrous course, and this is something that they still haven't realized. This using lawfare. I mean, essentially trying to, instead of beating Trump fair and square at the ballot box, they tried to just hobble him, just basically knock him out of the race, just, whack him across the knees, and that'll get him out of the race. And that's just that turned into an absolute disaster. The more they went after him, the more with these indictments. I mean, these are 4 criminal indictments. These are serious things. You were looking for something like 700 years in prison, and then they tried to bankrupt him. That it only made Trump more appealing. He became a martyr. I mean, that was never the case before, but now suddenly he became a martyr and therefore added to his popularity.
Case in point, George, how many countless numbers of hours did we devote to that lawfare? We never would have talked about it if it hadn't existed, okay?
Right.
But we were all forced to talk about an absolute bastardization of the legal system. I mean, it didn't, you can talk to a lot of ideologues and they'll go all along with it. You talk with common sense people, they'll say, what was this all about? And that's what you and I, what is
That's it.
this?
What was it all about? Well, that's exactly. And within about a year, if you were to ask anyone, hey, can you describe what it was that Jack Smith was trying to get Trump on? No one will know. I don't know. I don't remember what the hell any of that was about. And again, huge amount of resources was wasted on this. But it should have been obvious that if you tell people, hey, you can't vote for this one, that's only going to make the person more attractive. I mean, I remember, I remember Kurt Waldheim. You remember that former UN Secretary General, but somehow everyone had missed the fact that he had served in the Wehrmacht. He hadn't committed any war crimes. I think that was all kind of.
He's a teenager.
Yeah, but nonetheless, he then, after he left the UN position, he ran for president of Austria. And when this, everyone applied this pressure against Austria. You can't vote for a Nazi. You can't vote for somebody. He served in the Wehrmacht. But the Austrians really didn't like it. They didn't like being told whom they can and can't vote for. And of course, Waldheim won overwhelmingly. So you never want to tell people and then try to coerce them into not voting for someone that you don't like, because that's only going to make people more stubborn and say, well, we are going to vote for him.
To kind of wrap up here, Trump has to address the economy. I mean, it's going to be key. Absolutely.
Well, I think he has
because wokeism has essentially been defeated. Okay. Hollywood is on its back heels, not because of good ideas or bad ideas. It's just economics, the finances of it. It's not working. Okay, the issues about going and buying groceries. It's going to be the same on inauguration day, and
right.
That's
but that's it. But then you have to think, okay, well, Trump has an economic plan. I mean, we know the outlines of it is obviously the tariffs. He's going to go for that right away. The second part of the plan is obviously the immigration, which is essentially tightening the labor market. And by tightening the labor market, you're going to raise people's wages. I think that's pretty obvious that is what's going to happen. And then of course expanding oil drilling, all kinds of every whatever there's energy going is going to expand that, which is obviously going to drive down energy prices. That will have a stimulating effect. So that's the
hope.
Basic. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that probably will have the energy. But of course, it's interesting because that's going to have knock-on effects to other energy producers around the world. They're not going to be very happy with that. But again, Trump doesn't care about that. I mean, every other energy producer in the world doesn't like a complete collapse in prices, it'll have to be the consequence if there's going to be a massive American energy production. I think those are the outlines. Where he goes with the issue of the dollar, the strong dollar, that doesn't seem to be compatible with that agenda.
I just don't really think that can be at the forefront. I mean,
I don't know, but probably like the Treasury Secretary, I think Scott Bessent, with his Wall Street background, I think he's going to push for that. But that's a very peculiar for somebody who wants to essentially expand America's industrial might, then I don't see how a strong dollar helps you
I
there.
think it sounds appealing. I think the policies will, the dollar will be a reflection of those policies. Okay. And the last thing that the American economy needs right now is a strong dollar.
I
You
don't
want
think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you want people to buy your stuff, what little stuff you actually sell.
Right.
And that's something that I hope Trump will at least initiate, because the reindustrialization of America is is so necessary to maintain itself as a great power. Military can only go so far. Okay, you need to back it up with an integrated industrial base.
Right.
That's that's the footprint that you can leave in the world. And that's something that he really, really needs to do. And it's really, really hard. It's really, really expensive too.
Right.
Okay.
No,
So,
I think so. But I think that is going to be his calling card. I mean, that without question, that's going to be he's going to push for that, which is the reindustrialization of America. And again, remember when the last time America really pursued this strong dollar policy, which was in the early 1980s, as part of the anti-inflationary policy. Well, it did lead to a deindustrialization of America. I mean, that was they got rid of inflation, but they also deindustrialized. Americans lost a lot of key industries as a result of that. So I don't think Trump is going to want to go down that path. I mean, basically, you have to produce, and that's what his work. You have to produce, you have to sell. You have a strong dollar, you're gonna get killed by the competition. So I don't see that that's going
well,
to.
I don't know how often Trump will have cabinet meetings, but it will be very interesting to be a fly on the wall, because George has pointed out the tensions.
Right,
Right, you have to find the right mix.
right,
So
yeah,
all in, a huge challenges for this new administration.
right,
The Biden years, it was utter catastrophe. I mean, just I have
right.
nothing good to say about it. Nothing at
No,
all, really.
no, no,
Okay.
no, 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 absolutely no. Um, and um, and I think it's failed in every way. But it's kind of interesting also with this immigration policy, because at the heart of the Biden, um, essentially open door policy was a way of keeping wages down. I mean, basically you print money, that's obviously inflationary. So how do you control inflation? Well, you essentially keep wages down, and so it was actually a conscious policy. It wasn't just, hey, a lot of liberal do-gooders, oh, isn't it nice to bring colored people into the country or whatever? That shows how unracist we are. No, that was actually said. I mean, and I think Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, actually said, yeah, this is how we keep wages down. This is how we actually control inflation. So that's going to be a very important part of the Trump plan, which is people don't come in, and now with a tight labor market, wages will go up.
Yeah.
That's the plan. We'll see how that
Yeah,
happens,
but
but that's the plan.
that's the policymaker versus the
Right,
wage earner. Okay. I
right.
mean, yeah, that's very academic. Okay. But when you're at the kitchen table, it's very, very different.
But it's
Okay.
very different. But I think people know whether their wages are going up or they're not going up, and that was clearly what hurt Biden a lot more than his obvious decrepitude. I mean, which is people were realizing that inflation was going up at a faster rate than their pay. That's very easy. I mean, everyone just realized it. Well, why is that happening? Why is the rate of inflation doing better than my pay? Well, if there's a lot more labor around, the price of labor goes down. Yeah,
It was like a bad dream.
it was.
Years. It was
Yeah,
just a very, and it's so interesting because George and I have been doing this since the first day of the Biden administration. So we've gone through all of this here.
yeah.
I hope mistakes are people. The next administration will learn from those mistakes. Okay,
Right, right.
it's not going to be an easy ride. It's going to
No,
be.
then no, it isn't. But just going back to the issue of the Democrats, it is very, very interesting. I mean, whether the Democrats will do now what they did, in the late 80s when they rallied around, Bill Clinton, the New Democrats. So they abandoned that kind of big government
The New Deal, the New
Democrats.
Deal.
Yeah, they abandoned all of that and then finally got around the new Democrat. I'm no great fan of Bill Clinton, but that was a distinct, conscious choice the Democrats made, and that's really the modern Democratic Party. Essentially, stems from Bill Clinton. I mean, he kind of created the modern Democratic Party.
And the fortunes and power of Barack Obama, um, I guess, got to turn the lights out on that one. I
Yes,
mean,
absolutely.
the
No, that's
guy has been a complete disaster for the Democratic Party.
he really was.
And
He was
all roads of this, all roads lead to the disaster called Obama.
Obama, exactly. Exactly. That's right. But Obama was just again, he was kind of a snake oil salesman. He suggested that he was going to be this, he was going to make a move away from Clintonism and the New Democrats. He didn't. He always favored the wealthy against the poor. Bailout for the banks, no bailout for mortgage holders. And that was really the thing. I mean, he hired Wall Street to run the Treasury Department. I mean, so but he was essentially he sold himself as one thing, but and of course he played the game, that game which was being so catastrophic, which is the racist game. Essentially dividing the country and the people against one another. Everyone's a racist, and and so on. So he was a terrible president.
And a terrible post president.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and interestingly enough, one of the biggest winners is also the biggest loser at the same time. And that's Joe Biden. His presidency was a disaster. He will be mocked. It'll even become, that's like a Biden idea, or that's so Biden-esque, which will be
Right.
negative.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But Joe Biden, whatever faculties he still has, is leaving a happy man
Yeah.
because he burned it down. He burned down his party. He burned down the patrons. Okay, he's flipping the bird right now at Barack Obama.
Right.
He's leaving a happy man. Okay, after all he went through, whatever he remembers, which was probably not much, but I mean. No president in our lifetime has walked out the door with the place a dumpster fire right behind him, and he's licking his ice cream cone going into the jungle wherever he goes.
No, I
Big
think
loser, big winner simultaneously.
I agree. I think he's very bitter. He's very bitter about 2016 that the Barack Obama, and that means the Democratic Party didn't get behind him. Think, hey, it's unheard of for an
Unheard of.
incumbent vice president not to have the support of the outgoing president. But no, Obama threw his weight behind Hillary Clinton and say, hey, but Hillary Clinton lost. I would have won. And now Barack Obama did this again to him in 2024. And again, he says, "Hey, I would have won. Your candidate, like as with Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, she lost. So yeah, he thinks, I screwed them over. They screwed me over. I screwed them over. Yeah, I think he's going to walk out. Yeah, a very happy man.
Well, when the Bidens went to vote, excuse me, Dr. Jill, she's wearing a red dress. I think they voted for Trump.
Yeah. I think so. I think so. I think that because I think the she in particular was
She's
really pissed.
interrupted. She's been interrupted.
She was planning.
Jill interrupted.
Yeah, she was going to be president. Starting in 2025, she would be president because I mean he's already completely out of it. So he gets into office. He's not going to do anything. She's going to be presiding over cabinet meetings. I mean, she was almost doing that already, but now there won't even be the pretense that she's just simply helping him with the paperwork. No, she's actually going to be sitting presiding over the cabinet meetings, and now that's been taken away from her. I think she's very unhappy.
Well, I'm not really. I stopped reading political memoirs decades ago, to be honest with you. But if Jill comes out with one, I might try to get a PDF or. electronic version. I'd like to see what she has to say because I don't think she's going to spare anyone.
No,
No,
no, no, I don't think so. And
because they
I don't think he will. I mean, if he lives long enough to write his memoirs, but I'm sure she's going to write her memoirs, and and I am sure she will write in great detail about what actually happened during those crucial 10, 14 days or so when they bundled Biden aside. Because we haven't really found out. Everyone's been very quiet about the
well, I
exact
mean,
details of what happened.
but what's going on now? It's kind of a game of hot potato. Um, I see a stream of people trying to get out ahead of it because
Mhm.
they don't want to be left, holding the bag, the blame. Because you have a couple of CNN people saying, "Well, I think I should have scrutinized more." I mean, no, you're a liar.
Right,
You're making a confession,
right,
and these goofballs, they're trying to get ahead, trying to absolve themselves because it's all downstream. It's going to get a
right,
lot
right,
worse.
right. Oh,
Okay.
well, that's right. But the mechanics of how that worked, with Clooney writing that op-ed in the New York Times. I mean, that wasn't just simply, hey, why don't I just pen an op-ed for the Times and see if they publish it? No, I mean, that was clearly a very well-timed operation. It was clearly, number of people sat down
Regime
and
change.
worked out how they were gonna play this.
Regime change. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And again, it was a very, very polished
Yes.
article. You wonder, Clooney couldn't have written this. Somebody had to have written this for him. Exactly, a regime change. Like that. That's it. You could go step by step how they did this, and that we are going to find out. How they, and I'm sure already journalists are writing their books and get them off the presses as quickly as possible. So we're going to get a pretty good idea of how they work that scheme.
But will we ever find out about Russiagate?
Well, that's the question. I mean, so here, we just got Aaron Mate, under the what's it called, the not Farah. What is it,
FOIA.
when you file for the to get
FOIA.
documents. FOIA, that's right, under FOIA. We're always talking about FARA, so yeah, FOIA. Yeah. He got this document about how this was May 2017. The FBI launched an investigation of Donald Trump. This wasn't his campaign. Donald Trump and his collusion with the Russian. We have to find out whether he's actually an agent of the Russian government. They launched an investigation into Donald Trump. This is far beyond what we had been led to think, that they were just investigating the campaign. No, they actually launched an investigation into him personally. This was May 2017. So that's a serious business. You can't just simply let that go. This is what the FBI did with no evidentiary basis of whatsoever. Because in May 2017, they also knew that there was no evidentiary basis. They knew this. This wasn't like, well, let's find out. They knew everything. They'd already talked to Danchenko, and he told them, this is, I just made up a lot of barroom talk. So they knew this. They knew there was no basis for it, and yet they went ahead with this investigation. That's a serious business, and there has to be some kind of a reckoning. At least, even if you can't criminally prosecute them, there has to be at least a full report published.
George is absolutely right. I just want to know what happened.
Yeah,
Okay. And then I'll leave it to legal experts to figure it out if
right,
the people should be prosecuted. That's fine. I just want to know what happened. Okay. Because it distorted politics for the rest of our
right,
existence. Okay. In a very right. I mean, the United States and Russia are at war, not legally, but they are at war right
right,
now, and a
right.
lot of it goes back to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
we predicted this in December of 2016 that this will bleed into policy. Well,
Right,
it literally is bleeding into policy.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
No, exactly.
so much to be done, George.
Right.
Okay.
But that have to be, they will have to pursue this, whether, I mean, ultimately it'll be on the Justice, about the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. It'll be up to her, but it'll also be up to Kash Patel, and because he's been intimately involved in Russiagate really from the start. So they will have to put their weight behind this to have a full investigation, a full accounting. Let's go through all the documents, because this document that has Aaron Mate has posted on Twitter, it's of course full of the redacted. So you can only get little chunks of words and then huge blank spaces. But in those little chunks of words, they're saying, we have to investigate whether President Donald Trump is actually an agent of the Russian government. We have to investigate this. I mean, it's just quite mind-boggling. So Kash Patel will have to publish the full document, everything that was that in the folder, and then obviously there are many other documents, but that there has to be an accounting, and Kash Patel has to do this, and early on, don't just leave it, because when then there'll be other things on your plate. Do it right from the start.
Absolutely. It has to be a reckoning for this.
Right.
So.
Right.
Because I'm tired of talking about it. I've spent so much time on.
Right, but even so, I mean, we keep finding out new things. I didn't know that they actually did that thing specifically. I mean, maybe I did, but I remember there was anything specific that they investigated Donald Trump himself, whether he was an agent of the Kremlin. I mean, I thought it was about his campaign, but no, they actually launched an investigation into him personally.
And at the end of the day, the FBI couldn't confirm the claims in the Steele report. Then what do we need?
None of it.
Then what do we need the FBI for if you can't do that?
Right. Remember they offered him, was it $1 million? They said $1 million if you can if you can bring us confirmation. Yeah, $1 million they offered Steele, and he couldn't deliver anything.
No. All right, everybody. There's so many other things we can talk about. The wreckage left behind by this administration is immense. I'm going to be punished by it for a long time. Again, not being a Trump booster, I wish him all the best, because this is a listing ship, and it's got to be fixed real fast, and it has to be done in a way where his followers feel it and believe that this.
No, I think so. Yeah.
You hear all the time, this is the most important election of our lifetime. Okay, we hear that all the time, but a lot of the promises that Trump made, he needs to make good on them.
Well, he needs to, and as we just discussed, these obvious contradictions, which is he says, "Hey, we're going to tighten immigration restrictions in order to get a tight labor market, in order to drive up wages," and then Trump comes along yesterday at Mar-a-Lago, says, "Oh, we got to bring more and more people in. We're going to really need a lot of people." That's the opposite of what you're saying, and it's the opposite of your economic policies. So we're going to have to see how this plays out, because he's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
All right, everybody, save this space. Opening salvo here on New Year's Day.
Yep.
It's getting late here now, so the rest of the world in the West is relaxing, hopefully.
Exactly.
Take the day off tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tomorrow, George gets back to work.
That's right. I don't even know why there should be a public holiday, but okay, people want to.
That's George. That's George. That's George.
Exactly. Anyway, so tomorrow, Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join me for my solo live stream, and then think about these dogs. We can even hear them in the background. They're getting angrier and angrier. It's like, look, we're doing all the heavy lifting. We're doing all this backbreaking work, and we're not adequately remunerated. They want adequate remuneration. Again, we're talking about
they're beyond visas.
Okay. Exactly. Exactly. This business model of no pay for work, it's not a successful business model. That's what Buddy's been saying for years. It just doesn't work. So so if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out, dunk them in the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help friendship and support, the more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology, and maybe we can persuade the dogs, that we do have a successful business model. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.